It's time to join Montana's very own and your voice for agriculture, Talkin' Ag Lane Nordland, for today's Lanecast.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us again on the Agriculture Conversation on the Lanecast Ag Podcast, along with the Western Ag Network. And the first big video sale of the season has concluded, that being the Corn Belt Classic, hosted by Superior Livestock Auction. And one of those auctioneers selling high-quality cattle from across Western Ag Network country this week is Mr. Kyle Shobe, joining us here today. He's still out on the road attending the Livestock Marketing Association's annual convention there in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. But Kyle, as you've made your way to Oklahoma City here today, a lot of cattle selling this past week there in Sioux City, Nebraska, just under 60,000 head. A pretty steady market on the steer end of things. Heifers a little bit higher than the last averages as well. I guess, what was it like being up on the block and just seeing buyers and sellers alike just taking in this market this year?
Exceptional demand all the way around in almost every region that we sold. Of course, my report will kind of be on more of the northern cattle and the Montana cattle specifically. What we saw, this is the sale that really sets the bar for that calf market in Montana. It has for 36 years. And there's consigners on there with Superior that have been there since day one of this Corn Belt Classic sale. So a couple of reads just kind of right off the bat. Steers, exceptional demand, probably 20 to 30 higher across the board than what we saw last year in this same sale. 15% of these cattle over this 2-day sale were out of Montana. So a very good representation from the Big Sky country. 3 determining factors that were very noticeable this year at these levels. There are some things that start to play in, maybe a little heavier than just every other year. Number 1 is delivery date. Number 2 is geographic differences. These freight costs haven't really backed off a whole lot in the last number of years. So again, we're seeing these freight costs play into that. The third is shipping terms. And we're all used to certain weighing conditions and things, but there is no question this week the top dollar calves, the buyers paid more for calves with a favorable weighing condition, bigger slides, weight stops. There was no question about that. So as you're kind of looking through a market report, and there's always going to be some variance in any market. Every lot before you is true price discovery, and that's the beauty of it. And it really did discover how good this thing was going to be. And I think as producers, we need to realize this thing was very, very good. How many years can we look back and say we got $30 more than we did the year before for our calves? And it's solid. It's there. A lot of those contracts are out and done now, so there's kind of proof in the pudding that this thing is going to be solid for the fall. One other takeaway that I would say is that the heifers were certainly down in numbers. And it's really our first indicator of heifer retention, in my opinion. First we've seen in several years, 3 or 4 years maybe. Just less than 20% of the offering of those Montana cattle were heifers. And so I think we could see that continue throughout the summer, though it is hard to do at these levels, at these prices. And really hard to call a market on those heifers because there was really not many first cut situations, that you can tell they're keeping replacements off the top and you're getting a lighter load of heifers or 2 loads of heifers or whatever. So again, another one of those takeaways here this week. Heifer retention is certainly happening. You mentioned heifer market was a little higher, and it was. There was certainly demand for that. And I think when you look around the buyer base, and of course, a lot of the cattle out of Montana go right into Iowa. A lot of farmer feeders in the seats. The Canadians were very active here this week. But historically, a lot of these cattle go right into feeding country, and they continue to prove to do that this year. But when you start looking south onto the wheat pasture, and some of these guys that take these cattle into Oklahoma and Kansas and further south, there's guys that have been known to be steer guys through and through that may roll over to heifers just because of the amount of equity it's taking to run these cattle. We haven't even talked about the yearling trade yet, but I think we could start to see that, maybe a little more demand on those heifers, just because of the levels, not only the cost of getting into these cattle, but then the interest that we're still talking about in just running these, through the wheat program or whatever it might be into a grass or yearling situation.
Yeah, I want to hear what folks are saying about wheat down there in the big winter wheat belt there. But we look at these heifers though too. The forecast are kind of is for the rain to really shut off here throughout the next for the summer is what some meteorologists are predicting here. So it's going to be interesting to follow what folks do on these later video sales, if there's going to be a few more heifers on there or not. But again, if there's going to be grass and folks are retaining heifers, that's definitely going to showing a little bit of a sign of rebuild. But weather definitely going to be a factor. But as I mentioned, wheat. What are you hearing down there, Kansas, Oklahoma, places like that where there is a lot of wheat that isn't great quality right now? I know the harvest is really close to getting started there. Are we going to see a little more wheat pasture out there just get grazed rather than put a machine across it?
That's a good question, and I'm probably not qualified to really answer that because I didn't talk to anybody that's working with that situation right now out of that region. What I will say is this: it's a good thing meteorologists are wrong on a regular basis, and so I guess we'll see what comes to fruition on the forecast for the moisture and the rest of the summer. What I know right now is Montana looks really good. And across a lot of the West, of course, looks really good. As we all know, hay prices are going to be kind of helping bolster the cost of production, or at least take the cost of production down into more of a digestible level for the foreseeable future. A lot of hay has been kept in those stacks, of course, and this hay crop isn't made yet, but it's certainly on the cusp of it, and on the outside of it looks like we're going to certainly have some feed and not have to go to the far reaches of the world to find it like we did a couple of years ago. So I think when you kind of relate this back into the northern country and what could happen between heifer retention, bred cow market, there's a lot of speculation out there right now. What we do know after this week is that the fall calf delivery contract season is underway, and it's underway in a big way with some very, very positive results.
Kyle, we should mention that the deadline to get calves consigned for that Week in the Rockies sale taking place in Colorado for Spear Livestock. That's coming up
real quickly. It's next Friday, the 21st. So that will prove to be a very, very large sale. 5 full days of 300 plus lot days. Could be 1,500 lots plus. I think last year we had almost 1,900 lots in that sale, and I wouldn't be surprised if we push that again. But there's always really good demand on that Week in the Rockies sale, and a good opportunity to take advantage of a market that's showing some strength and showing some stability here, even as we are this early in the season.
You just look at input costs and fuel, and as you mentioned, just transportation. Once delivery starts taking place on these steers and heifers, just looking North Dakota, South Dakota, and I'm assuming these are more South Dakota cattle. We had some 6.5 to 6.99 weight steers averaging 266 to 301 just in Montana. You go down to the Dakotas over there, and most likely South Dakota, that same price range. $3.29 to $3.30. A lot closer, obviously, to feeding country down there, but those are some pretty dang impressive prices, and good prices also for those cattle getting trucked from Montana. But overall, I mean, I tell you what, folks are probably celebrating a little bit if they consigned in this sale this week.
For sure, and what we need to keep in mind with these cattle that are selling right now on the hoof for immediate delivery, it's a little bit, we're getting a lot closer to blending with that fall delivery market, but we always have to remember that the spring grass market on feeder cattle is not the same as the fall calf market. So we finally crossed that first bridge this week. We finally determined what some of these contracts are going to be worth, and it's good to see that the market is relatively in line with what we were all thinking. Again, I'll reiterate how I think we all need to realize this was awfully good. And anything more than this, I think, is just kind of pulling numbers. These feeders got to make some money. They've got to stay in business too, because they're the ones that come back to the water and drink and kind of continue to keep the cow-calf sector in business. So if we stayed at these levels for the rest of the summer, I think we'd be in very, very good shape. Of course, we will take all we can get, and this thing could certainly show a little bit more strength. I guess time will tell.
Now, as well, you're down there in Oklahoma City here today as well for the Livestock Marketing Association's annual meeting. What's the talk there with your fellow livestock market owners? Again, True Price Discovery. We just had this big sale. I know that's probably the talk around the water cooler, but what are some of the key things that market owners are going to be addressing this week in Oklahoma City?
Producer profitability has certainly been a topic that LMA has initiated the conversation on in a lot of ways. And of course, we've seen the Montana Stock Growers Association kind of pick that up and run with it. They're not the only ones. This is kind of a nationwide endeavor. I think one of the things that'll probably be really focused on and talked about this week is just producer involvement in the trade organizations, whatever that is. And I think maybe now more than ever, we realize that as an industry, we've got to find some common ground. And I think the LMA, whether people know it or not, the LMA behind the scenes has done a lot of work over the last 20 years. It kind of, I don't know, being a mediator of sorts, mending some fences, trying to relate between some of these trade organizations and find that common ground. And they continue to do that. And I think obviously if we could put some differences aside, there's a lot of things that are very pressing within the industry that we could work on. And so that'll be a lot of the discussion, I think, this week and throughout the coming year. LMA represents over 80% of local livestock auction markets around the country. And those markets, as you know, are between every sector of the industry. So it's the perfect organization to kind of be able to blend some of these trade organizations together, because it is not strictly representing cow-calf. It's not strictly representing the feeder or anybody else in the chain. The livestock markets are between each sector of that chain. So it puts us in a unique position to kind of encourage conversation. And I think they do a very good job of that. We'll continue to do a great job of that.
Also, Kyle, this week a new world champion livestock auctioneer will be crowned. You've gone through the process. You're a past champion yourself. What is that like to watch that and see your fellow your fellow auctioneers out there participating in this, and just seeing the level and the skill that truly goes into each of these contestants' process going through the championship itself?
Yeah, it's a special place for me because this is where I won it back in 2010, and that's getting to be a long time ago now. This morning we did some filming over at the stockyards, and not a whole lot's changed. There's about 200, 300 yards of catwalk that you've got to walk to get into the sale ring. You don't just drive up and walk in the front door and there's the cafe. You literally walk up the stairs, go across the catwalk, and a very historic place. 7 or 8 commission firms sell out of Oklahoma National Stockyard, so it's kind of like having 8 different markets all in one location. A very, very unique situation. But they certainly are a force in the industry, and one of those markets that is always looked at for market price and price discovery. So with all that said, there's a lot of nostalgia here. The year that I won it, it was their 100th anniversary, their 100th celebration. So we're 14 years beyond that now, still as historic as ever, and still representing cattle out of this region remarkably well. As far as the auctioneer contest goes, 30 of the top auctioneers from all across the country and Canada are here to compete, and one of them will walk away as champion. It's always impressive to see the turnout, the talent that seems to continue to get better every year. And these auctioneers are the voice of the industry in so many ways. And so we've got a few from the northern part of the country that are here this week, and some from all regions. So it'll be fun. You can tune in. There'll be a live link on Facebook and on YouTube where it'll be broadcast, and then we'll broadcast a 1-hour special on RFD TV a little bit later in the month of June.
Well, again, a lot of happenings. I should mention our network's Russell Nimitz is heading down there as well to help partake in that producer profitability initiative. I believe he's hosting a panel. I could be mistaken.
Yeah, he'll be here Thursday. Yeah.
But again, Kyle, a big week, obviously, for cow-calf producers and for livestock market owners. And again, a great start to our video sales season. And we all have, it's been a tough go with drought, with grasshoppers. We're seeing some of those little grasshoppers pop up here east of Great Falls, Montana. So hopefully they're not bad compared to other parts of the state. But it's been a tough go. So it's finally time for these cow-calf guys to get a little bit of a win here in these prices.
It's certainly here, and it's gonna stick around for a little bit. So have some confidence as we go throughout the summer. But also, I'd encourage any of them to talk about risk protection and talk about market timing and things. And again, deadline for the next Superior sales coming right up in just over a week. So these will continue to happen, and market will continue to be identified. But as of right now, things look like it's very solid moving forward.
Well, again, Kyle Shope joins us, as he mentioned, that week in the Rockies, a consignment deadline coming up June 21st for, again, the week in the Rockies. Again, Kyle, thank you so much for joining us here today on the Agriculture Conversation, and have fun there in Oklahoma City this week.
Sounds good, Lane. Thank you.
With that, friends, don't go too far. We'll go through a few more of those prices from the Week in the Rockies sale on region and state coming up next, but we'll be back right after this.
Ready for a real PRF partner?
He was willing to track us for a year and provide that data back to us for a year. That's a guy making a pretty big investment.
At Ag Risk Advisors, this isn't our first rodeo. We are one of the most experienced in pasture rangeland forage. Honesty, commitment, trust. Many companies use these words. At Ag Risk Advisors, we earn them.
Well, as we come back today, it was great catching up with former world champion livestock auctioneer Kyle Shope. He and his wife Jody own Lewistown Livestock Auction out of Lewistown, Montana. Of course, he was on the block this week for the Corn Belt Classic. Now, he discussed the positive trends seen at that sale this week, but diving into more depth of these steers and heifers that sold this week, particularly Region 2, which covers much of Western Ag Network country. We saw the lighter 450 to 499 weight steers bring a price of $330 to $352 across the region. On your screen, you can see more of those regional state variances closer to feedlot country and earlier delivery dates, definitely seeing a higher price, but these are prices across the board and all delivery dates, that is. The 5 to 5.5 weights ranging anywhere from $3.17 all the way up to $3.53 for cattle coming out of the Dakotas. 5.5 to 6 weights priced at $3.03 all the way up to $3.26. 6 to 6.5 weights, $2.82 to $3.16. Prices for the 650 to 7 weight steers, $2.69 to $3.30 a pound. 700 to 749 weight steers, $2.78 to $2.93. 7.5 to 799 weights, $2.41 to $2.81. 8 to 849 weight steers, $2.38 to $2.67. Now, again, we'll have all the results in the description and link below for all the other states and overall averages for that Superior sale. Now, as we look to those heifer prices, mostly heifers coming out of Montana, and how Kyle put it, it really looks like a lot of producers are retaining a lot of those heifers in the countryside. Overall, the average is about $1 to $3 higher on average for these heifer calves at the Corn Belt Classic sale this year. The 4.5 to 499 weight heifers out of Montana priced at $326 to $332. 5 to 549 weight heifers, $279 all the way up to $3.07, with the 5.5 to 599 weight heifers, $270 to $3.02. That 302 cents coming out of the Dakotas. Again, a lot of great prices, and we are going to continue to track all of those prices on the video sales throughout video sales season here on the Lanecast Ag Podcast and on the Western Ag Network. If you've not done so, please subscribe to the Lanecast Ag Podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. And also, if you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure and subscribe to the Western Ag Network YouTube channel as well, where we have content, not just the Lanecast, but content every day that is important to farmers and ranchers across the Western United States. Again, friends, we'll have links to all of the results from this year's Superior Livestock Corn Belt Classic sale. Again, the upcoming deadline for the Week in the Rockies sale is June 21st to get your cattle consigned. Again, that is going to be taking place in Snowbird, Utah this year. I think I mentioned a few times that it was taking place in Colorado, but they're going to go to Snowbird, Utah this year for that, the Week in the Rockies sale. Well, friends, thanks for joining us here on the Lanecast Ag Podcast as we talk about the first big video sale season of the year. Until next time, I'm Lane Nordlund. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lanecast with Talkin' Ag, Lane Nordlund. Don't forget to subscribe to the Lanecast on your Apple or Android devices. We look forward to joining you next time on the Lanecast.